Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
willing to do his will. But he patiently waits to our hearts to move forward, to do and see his direction. And he does. Everything is done. Just we need to follow. It's not easy because following him never easy. But we must go because it's worth it. Perhaps you are just wondering what is going on with my life, not knowing what is coming ahead. I should say, jump in and serve the Lord. Jump in his project. Let him drive you, and he will do. He will accomplish and fulfill the purpose he has for you, because he has a plan with your life that is unique.
For a link to OMS, go to twr.org/footsteps.
Footsteps is a production of TWR.
So what is his goal? He says, I travail. What are you travailing until? Until Christ be formed in you.
You know, the Christian life isn't easy. We're called to work out our faith. But why? Well, it's so we can be conformed more into the image of Christ. Learn more when you join Pastor Ford for the next Treasured Truth.
Weekdays at 9 p.m., Saturdays at 8:30 on WCRF.
Helping you take the next step in your walk with Christ. And home of Mornings with Brian. This is Moody Radio Cleveland, WCRF Cleveland, WVMS Sandusky, WVML Millersburg, WVMN Newcastle, WVME Meadville, WVMU Ashtabula, and everywhere with the Moody Radio app or at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
Russia and North Korea are strengthening ties as Vladimir Putin seeks ammunition for his ongoing war in Ukraine. It's 6 o'clock. I'm Ron Eastwood, Moody Radio News. Putin made a rare visit to North Korea to hold a summit with Kim Jong-un. The two signed a pact pledging mutual defense if either country is attacked. Cleveland City Hall is back open today, more than a week after a cyber incident that impacted the city's IT system. Only select services will be available, and those seeking building and housing assessments and licenses, vital statistics, and civil service exams should expect delays. And Memphis Kiddie Park in Brooklyn is closed this first day of summer. The park announced the closure due to the heat. Kiddie Park says it's for everyone's safety they're chosen to shut down, but their plans are to reopen again tomorrow. I'll be right back with sports and weather.
We have a fun, engaging, and screen-free way to keep your kids learning this summer. Join Moody's free summer reading program. When you sign up, you'll get access to interactive downloads, special prizes, and books that kids love and parents trust. This free summer program can help them develop a lifelong love of reading. So why wait? Sign up now and let the adventure begin. Visit moodybooks.org and click on the banner to get started at moodybooks.org.
In sports, the Guardians shut out the Mariners 8-zip, while the Pirates blanked the Reds 1-0. Here's your Moody Radio Cleveland forecast. A heat advisory has been extended now until 8 p.m. Saturday. It was going to end Friday, now Saturday. For today, partly cloudy, scattered showers and thunderstorms this afternoon, and it's going to be hot again with highs in the lower 90s. At last check, some clouds in the Cleveland area where it's 74 degrees, 72 in Akron and Canton, 72 degrees in Youngstown as well.
It's time for your Moron Moment.
Today marks the summer solstice, the longest day of the year in the northern hemisphere, and conversely, the shortest in the southern hemisphere. It will precisely occur at 4:50 p.m. Eastern Time. It signals the beginning of astronomical summer north of the equator and winter, of course, in the southern hemisphere. The sun will not set at the North Pole, and at the South Pole it will not rise. If you're curious, solstice is a result of the Earth rotating on an axis that's tilted 23.5 degrees. And that's your Moron Moment. And you'll find that on our Facebook and Instagram. It's 6:03 with Moody Radio News. I'm Ron Eastwood.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Boy, 6:07. I'm already a little verklempt here. She's back.
Oh, yes.
Lauren is back. Oh,
Wow.
we missed you, Lauren.
Thank you. I missed you guys.
I missed you most.
I think she did.
I'm sure.
There was a few times where her only comment when I would ask her a question would be, "When's Lauren coming back?" I think one of them even made the internet, if I recall.
Yeah, I did put that online. And then my favorite part was Lauren commented under that with a GIF from Super Danny. What was that, Lauren?
You guys are in a crisis. I'm on my way.
Yeah, well, in
It's my
some
favorite
respects.
one.
Now, this was your first big trip, Lauren, back to Chicago since you moved to Northeast Ohio.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What was the experience like? Because you've moved a lot in your life, but this is your
Yeah.
first time as a grown up with children doing such things.
Yeah, as an adult, and I lived in Chicago the longest in my lifetime.
How many years have you calculated?
11 in the actual city of Chicago.
Yeah.
If I included the suburbs, it's even more than that.
Oh wow.
So yes, we drove back on Friday. The trip was treacherous, just horrendous.
What do you mean by that? You have to qualify that.
Ellis threw up twice.
Oh my.
He doesn't like car rides, is
No,
what I
he
understand.
doesn't. No, he does not.
And he's how old now? 8 months?
8 months, yeah.
Yeah,
He
and
just
there's
hates
nothing
the car ride.
anyone can do
No,
about
you can't
that.
do anything about it. I cannot hold you in this car. You have to sit in your car seat.
And you can't say, "Oh no, it's okay. We're just in a car."
Yeah, we're all here.
Like he's
We're not going anywhere.
It's
Yeah.
not computing.
No. So I threw up twice. So that was great. He really wanted to sleep, and he just wouldn't go to sleep.
Yeah.
And so at one point, we're on the side of the highway, and Eddie's just walking up and down the side of the highway, trying to get him to go to sleep.
Oh.
I know.
Wow.
So we were thankful to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet you almost cried when
Yes,
you
and then I
finally
had to
arrived.
take out 2 car seats and clean them. So, but that's okay.
That's always fun.
Yes. And then Saturday, all of our families were there. So my parents and my sister that lives in Chicago. And then Eddie's dad and stepmom, 2 sisters. Anybody else? No, that's it. So,
And everybody got
yes,
together.
everybody got
Oh
together.
wow, both sides.
Yeah, we do that often because we're in the same area.
And it goes okay. Everyone gets along.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
fine.
Some families that just sounds like an explosion waiting to happen.
No, yeah, we do it often. 'Cause
Look at you guys.
My parents have a house out in the suburbs, big enough for all of us to be there. So we were all there, and it was great and fine and fun. And Trey was excited. All his people were there. He just couldn't contain himself. And then Eddie had already had plans all that weekend and the days that we were there. I kind of attached myself to his trip. So he was like, "Well, I already have these plans." And I said, "That's fine. I'm not there to see you." So he left on Thursday with his family to go do Father's Day stuff with his 3 siblings and his dad. And as they were leaving, Trey kind of he likes to watch cars drive away. If anyone's leaving, he's going to watch them drive away.
Okay.
And he said to me, "Oh, I'm really sad that they're all leaving." And I was like, "Oh, why are you sad?" And he goes, "Because I liked having them here."
Aww.
And I said, "Daddy or Nana and Papa," which is what he calls them. He said, "Nana and Papa." And then I was like, "Oh, why did we move?"
Aww.
No, yeah.
Because you're
absolutely.
with your for your kids, their grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like totally loved. And so it was just hard. It's hard. You know all the reasons you move, but then you go back and you're like, wait, why did we move? And of course, that's a special occasion. We're not all together all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You could go a couple months without, seeing them in person if like schedules don't align or whatever. But it's just, oh, this is sad.
Yeah.
Because most of our people are.
And just for their benefit, there are houses available here in Northeast Ohio.
That's exactly right. My neighbor's moving. Come on over.
There you go.
Now, to what extent did Trey kind of articulate something in your heart that you hadn't like maybe verbalized yet? You know what I mean? Like sometimes kids speak things out of the innocence of their hearts that we haven't fully grasped yet.
Yeah, I think that is how I feel. I think it's hard when we lived with my parents for the last year to say, when you're living in a small space with 2 other grown adults that have also, been married, 30 something years, you're all kind of set in your ways. You have your own way you want to live life.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for everybody. We made it work and we had a great relationship and we still do. It's just, we were like, oh, we're so excited to have our own space, to have our own house, to do our own thing, to have our own schedule and routine. So I wasn't thinking about that when we left. I was just excited to have our own space. And then going back, it's like, but what we lack in our own space is proximity to our family.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, and it's something, if someone hasn't moved out of state,
Yeah.
it's difficult to describe that feeling. But I recall going back when Sarah and I first moved to Chicago, we'd go back to Minnesota, and I would grieve because I would notice that life had moved on without us. And that there was a point at which we couldn't just pack up and go back and everything would be the same.
Right.
Like people had kind of moved on with other relationships, and you just kind of go, like, you really close a chapter in life. And it's hard. I'm not trying to make this Oprah where you start crying or something, but it's all the feels, and it's hard to describe. Even I remember going back to Moody once I moved here. Like when I had been at Moody for like 7 years working in Chicago, I was walking up and down the halls like, hey, how you doing? No, hey, oh, it's you. Hey, like, you know everybody.
Yeah, that's how I was. I was there for 7 years.
And then you go back and suddenly, like, some people don't know who you are. And then eventually you go back and you have to remind people you work there and ask for passes and things. It's just like, because no one knows that you exist. And it's hard. If you haven't moved, because a lot of people are born and raised and stay in the same place they've always been. Ron. So it's hard to describe what that feels like.
Yeah. I think it's good. We're doing the right thing for our family moving here. We're not, worried. We don't think that we made the wrong decision doing that. It's just like, oh, we didn't think about how we'd feel seeing our family again. Or, yeah, that life's like kind of moved on without us. Obviously, ours has too here.
Of course.
But everything else is the same, but we're not there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll never forget when my mother-in-law weeping as it was like the last goodbye. We went to breakfast when we moved away from Minnesota, and then the kids weeping, and I'm driving then after for like the next hour just thinking, oh no, what have I done?
Yeah.
And I got on the subway in Chicago for about 6 months, staring out the window at 3:30 in the morning every morning thinking, oh no, what have I done? Even though I knew I was firmly in God's will.
Right.
And yeah, and then I had one kid, my third, my Sophia, has always had she was the baby when we left. She's always had kind of a longing. I wish I was closer to my grandparents. And every time you sense that longing, you go, oh no, what have I done? But no, you have to lean on God's providence, because life isn't designed to be easy.
Yeah, and my family, my parents are familiar with that. They moved away from their family. Their siblings, their parents, everyone kind of stayed nearish by. When my family growing up, we're the ones that left. And so my family's, used to it. They're not surprised by it.
Does that help, do you think, that your parents know what that feels like?
I think so.
Was it something you articulated, or you just had this sense around them, like, they get it, this is a weird trip?
Not that they articulated, no.
But they just know, and that helps. Okay. Well, we're glad you're back and that you're here.
Yes, glad to be back. It was nice to have a break, though.
So it's not, oh no, what did you do? It's, yay, look what you did.
Yeah, I mean, getting back into a routine is hard, but it'll be fine. After 5 days off, yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, that's hard too, yeah. Well, coming up in a minute, Apple's going to change all your routines.
Oh.
There's a new update coming to Apple software, and we'll be talking about all the changes in that, some good, some weird. And there's much more to discuss even coming up in the next half hour. There's a constant work to keep a family connected. And I think there's this love and respect that we're guided by the Lord to give to our family and honor. But there's work that doesn't necessarily have a name you might have articulated. Oh, but it has a name. And there's a particular person who's doing all the work. We'll talk about all that here in just a few minutes.
Ever wondered if there's a way for Christians to meet their healthcare costs affordably and efficiently? A biblical lifestyle alternative to traditional healthcare options? The answer is Christian Healthcare Ministries. They've enabled believers to live out their faith while embracing a voluntary health cost ministry for over 40 years. It all starts with a visit to chministries.org/Moody to see how CHM meets values and healthcare costs. Get more information and have your questions answered at chministries.org/Moody.
We know that Moody Radio Cleveland listeners are a generous bunch. Many would give an arm and a leg to help someone in need. So we're asking for your arm. Our annual blood drive is coming up on June 25th, and we'd appreciate you giving blood from whichever arm you prefer. Make your plans today to donate at Cuyahoga Valley Church on Tuesday, June 25th between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Schedule your appointment to give blood. Go to redcrossblood.org and enter the sponsor code CVC online.
You can teach English as a second language anywhere in the world with a degree in TESOL from Moody Bible Institute. You'll learn about pedagogy, applied linguistics, and how to minister cross-culturally while teaching English. It's a significant way to serve Christ and witness to others. Study on the Moody Bible Institute campus in Chicago or Plymouth, Michigan. Learn more and apply online today at moody.edu/MATESOL. moody.edu/MATESOL.
Now, I don't know about you, but the constant anger and division in society gives me a headache. Isn't it possible to disagree without hating each other and canceling somebody? To extend grace when somebody makes a mistake? We believe it is. It's truly possible to have crucial conversations from society and walk away encouraged. Give us a try, and you'll see. Join us for Mornings with Brian, weekdays starting at 6 a.m. on 103.3 FM.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
.621 WCRF. Here we are. It's time for almost, on Tuesday next week, the blood drive.
Yeah.
Can't wait. It's coming. We're going to have a live broadcast from Cuyahoga Valley Church in Broadview Heights.
So soon.
You're going to go donate your blood, and you're going to get Guardians tickets for doing this. I tried to do an impression of Eddie's response to that information, but I don't know how well it went. Can you kind of recreate this for us?
So I told Eddie, I said, oh, yeah, this blood drive we're doing, everyone that donates blood gets a voucher for Guardians tickets. Before I could even get the words out of my mouth, he said, I'll be there.
Nice.
Like, okay, great.
Whatever it takes.
Do you think he'll come on the show?
No, because I looked up I pulled up the appointment times, and he has a full day work sales conference.
Oh.
I know where
so
they
he won't be there.
No, so he won't be there.
No free tickets for
I
him.
know, where they announce all the new books for the next season. So
Did you take his blood to go and just bring it in?
I brought this donation.
Tap a vein, yeah.
And put it in like a to-go cup.
Are you gonna donate so that he can have your tickets?
I'm not able, but thank you for asking.
Oh, is it the whole nursing mother bit?
Yes, because it takes so much of your water, and you need water to also make milk. So,
well, I'll have to
I
decide
already
what
drink
kind of-
120 ounces of water. I can't drink anymore.
No.
Absolutely cannot drink more water.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe
That's a
if
good
Eddie's really
idea,
nice
Ron.
to me, I'll give him my vouchers
Yeah, maybe.
if I donate. Okay, it's Tuesday next week again, and all presenting donors will get a Guardians T-shirt. Yes, that's right. 2 tickets to an upcoming game.
That's
Gifts
so good.
from Chick-fil-A, us. Yeah, the tickets thing is a pretty
It's
big deal.
unbelievable, yeah.
And it's while supplies last. So don't yell at us if you do a walk-in too late and they don't have any left.
Right.
You can. Well, don't yell at anybody.
Well,
You're a
come
Christian.
between 6 and 9 and you'll see us and get tickets because the supplies are going to last. Those first hours we're there.
See?
They should, yeah.
Yeah.
You want to get your appointment? Text DRIVE to 440-546-2255. Text DRIVE to 440-546-2255. Okay, so whether or not we like it, many of us are, dare I say, most of us are glued to our smartphones. And whenever they change something, it kind of wreaks havoc on our lives. You ever notice that? Like if something happens, I just don't, especially when they added those features, like before I didn't have to tell my phone what I'm doing. Like, oh, this is personal time. Oh, I'm driving. Oh, I'm sleeping.
Here we go again. You don't have to do that.
Just stop it. I feel like I do, but
No, it's just helpful in case you don't want to be bothered at a certain time.
I'm going to start doing it and say this is my personal time so I don't get work notifications.
When
I had to do that.
It's
But
a good
when
idea.
they changed it, suddenly there was something happening I didn't ask for on my phone.
I
Yes.
never got that.
I did.
Ron's right.
Clearly, it confuses middle-aged people when these things happen. And Apple's rolling out iOS 18 in September, also iPad OS 18 and Mac OS Sequoia
Ooh, Sequoia.
is coming out. Yeah.
They're going to run out of trees to name them.
They
It's always
might.
like a tree or like some like nature escape that they name it.
Yeah, something California related.
It's annoying.
Sedona.
So there's big changes coming.
Okay.
So one of them I'm very excited about. Do you know what tapbacks are? Tapback is what it's called. It's one word.
Is that when you like react to something? Like you click the message and you can do like exclamations or questions or thumbs up.
Yeah, it's if Lauren texts me or Ron texts me, I can like it or heart it. And there's,
Okay.
And there's other options that I'm still sort of confused by. You know.
We've gone over this.
And Lauren gets mad when anyone uses the question mark.
Yeah, just ask your question. Don't just question my statement.
It sounds like it's not just Brian that has problems with these
No,
tapbacks.
I understand what the question mark is. You don't understand what an emphasis means.
You did that to me once and I didn't know what it was. I just was busy liking things. You know, like a thumbs up. But here's the big change. Apple's going to they're unlocking the full emoji library for tapbacks, plus any Genmojis you create using the new AI feature. Like you make your own emojis, apparently. And all this is unlocked. So I could, tap on, do the tap back, press and hold on Ron's text to me.
And you could do the vomit face if something's gross.
Yes.
Or the skull.
Or the
if
skull.
you found me very funny.
Or I could do a piece of cake or a balloon.
Or clapping hands.
Yeah, anything I wanted.
Wow.
Which
That's nice.
It's nice, and yet it's also going to slow down my tap back game.
Oh, yeah.
I need that.
It looked to me like you can maybe select favorites that are just kind of there, or it'll automatically pick out your most used, like it does when you're texting the emojis.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, like the example they have is somebody texted, if cake for breakfast is wrong, I don't want to be right. And
there you go.
I
And
do
what
love coffee
pops up, one of the options when you do a tap back is a piece of cake.
Yeah, all the emojis.
But no, but it recognizes the words.
Oh, I see.
Like
That's
you
nice.
said cake and you said breakfast, so it'll come up with,
Scrambled eggs and cake.
Right.
Okay.
Next one. When Lauren heard about this, I thought she was going to do a little dance. You can do that now if you'd like. We're on YouTube.
No, thank you.
You can schedule text messages to send later.
Brilliant.
I'm so excited for this one.
Thrilled.
Explain to people why you care about that.
Because it lessens your brain traffic. Instead of having to say, I need to text my mom about that tomorrow so that she does it at this time or whatever, you just schedule it so then you never have to think about it again. So you don't have to keep remembering, I have to text my mom tomorrow. I have to text my mom tomorrow. I have to text my mom tomorrow. You just schedule it.
I guess you tap and hold and you schedule. I don't know how it's going to work, but that's how you do it.
I'm obsessed.
It's a good idea.
Find me scheduling all my texts.
Now, the hard part is I'll never know what's happening on the other end of a text from you. Like if I get a text from you, I can pretty much count on you're there and you're able to respond to me. Now it's just...
You never know.
You might be asleep.
Yeah.
And suddenly you text me while sleeping.
Yeah, or sometimes, we wake up so early and I've gotten all these texts from 8 p.m. on. And so I want to reply, but it's too early. So then I wait for them and then I forget. So it would be nice to schedule it instead.
I just text them anyway. If their phone is not on silent at 4 a.m., that's on them.
Yeah, that is true.
Now, apparently this will only work with Apple users. So you Android users, I don't know what you're going to do. But
you're not going to get scheduled text. You're just going to get them.
Or they may already have them. Often Android's ahead of Apple.
They may have that, but it says your Android friends will still either hear you right away or not at all. I don't think anyone knows what's going to happen per se when it gets to them.
Okay.
iPad finally will have a calculator. Apparently they didn't have a calculator
I was shocked to hear this information. How did they not have a calculator?
This device is like 20 years old almost at this point.
It never had a native calculator from Apple. You had to download one, and now it has it. And it has a new feature where you can actually, it's called Math Notes, where you can write out, if you have an Apple Pen or whatever, you can write out a math problem, and it'll solve it.
Why would I ever do that?
I don't know.
Who does long math anymore?
I'm not. I plan to intentionally never write down a math problem again.
That's right.
Since I dropped math my senior year in high school. Okay. Also, we have the password app. You know how Apple keeps your passwords? But you don't know, like, it's hard to get in there and find them. Like, it just kind of appears if it thinks you want a password. They actually have created a password app now in this new thing for your passwords, where you can go and, like, look at them and keep them. Kind of like a keeper app. Like right now, Sarah and I have an app we pay a subscription for to hold all of our passwords.
Okay.
Which is going to change that entire industry.
Yeah, Eddie has one too.
And so the question will become, will I maintain that membership, or will I just begin to transfer all of my passwords over to the native app? Because the native app in Apple will be, it uses Face ID, it's password protected.
It'll connect to all the apps that you use it for.
Oh, yeah, you'll dump that keeper app because you save $7 a month or whatever.
Yeah, if people own the company owning that app they're in trouble. Yeah,
they'll probably go hire hackers to hack into the Apple app and ruin their reputation, so everybody comes back to them.
They probably will. Another one that's really wild is this. So you hear stories about people who get lost in the woods or they're hiking or whatever, and oh no, I've got my phone, but I'm holding it up in the air like that'll help me find a signal.
Yeah.
Because if you're away from a tower...
Extra foot really makes a difference when you're trying to connect to something.
Like in the olden days, you'd pull your antenna up, and it might make a difference. But now it's like if you're away from a tower, it's too late. Now you can actually have a choice where your phone will connect to a satellite.
Oh.
So in theory, if you have an Apple phone and you like to go wander off into the middle of nowhere, you probably will be okay if you get lost. I mean, this is my theory. They're not telling me this, but...
So is this all the time?
Yeah.
So
you can choose to use that. I'm assuming they'll make you pay for it or whatever, but you can. It'll come up with an option if there's no connectivity. Do you want to connect by satellite? And so you could be like, "Hey, Lauren, I'm stuck in the woods in the middle of nowhere. Here's my location." Because like Dave Safransky is going to be on the show later today.
Yeah.
He's in Amazon.
He sent us his location, literally in the middle of the Amazon, in the middle of nowhere. Because he has satellite connection with Starlink. But this will change that for Apple users. I mean, I don't really go anywhere, so it's not going to be a problem for me.
Yeah, I'm just struggling to imagine you, like, in the woods,
Correct,
and then Lauren coming to the rescue.
I'm not helping you.
No, you'd just laugh. You'd send a skull emoji.
Sorry about it.
And be like, sorry, I'm busy.
This is you in 3 days when your food runs out.
In the new iOS software, you'll also be able to lock and hide apps. So if you, for example, don't want your kids to see your bank app, like you hand your phone to your kid, you don't want to open up your bank and like start sending money to people, you can lock it and hide it in a folder. So locking it means you can't open the app without a password.
Conversely, be aware that your children will be able to hide apps they don't want you to see. So just be aware of that.
I'm excited because when Trey FaceTimes family, he immediately goes shopping on the Target app.
Oh, yeah.
He like swipes the family away. They can still hear him. He swipes them away and he's like, I'm going to put this in our cart. So I'm going to hide those.
I was years ago minding my own business.
Unlikely.
Show up at work. I'm in Chicago. I'm producing a morning show. Open up my email. There's a notification from Apple that I've spent $100 in in-app purchases. Hey, this was poor Brian and Sarah. I mean, we were like barely making it in life. And I panicked. Turns out I handed my phone to my little Sophia at the time, who was like 4 or 5. And she was playing Subway Surfer. And it kept asking her if she would like to purchase things.
Yeah.
And back then they didn't have protections. And so she just
Yeah,
couldn't
I do.
read. And so
Said,
she clicked
yes.
the bright, shiny one.
The green one.
Yeah. And Apple rescued me. They were like, we give you one time where we're going to fix this. And then we're going to tell you how to protect it. And so they refunded the purchases, which I was relieved by. But
yeah, good for them.
Panic. Okay, do we feel good about these changes?
Yes.
I'm excited.
Yeah. Some probably won't make any difference to me, but I like those emojis. I think that will be more meaningful.
One of them will confuse me, I guarantee. And I'll never understand it when iOS 19 comes out. And Lauren and Daria will make fun of me. Yeah?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 6:33, we're going to pause for prayer. When we come back, the constant work to keep a family connected has a name. And there's a particular type of person who's doing all the work. We'll explain in a minute.
I'm Nate Hunter, and this is Pause for Prayer. What would you do if you were faced with direct Satan worship? Mississippi resident Michael Cassidy, a Christian U.S. Navy veteran and former congressional U.S. candidate, has been charged with a hate crime after tearing down and beheading the controversial satanic temple statue Baphomet. It was displayed at the tundra of the Iowa State House. When Jesus was faced directly by Satan, he said in Matthew 4:10, "Be gone, for it's written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only you serve." Let's pause for prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, you are the only true God. As Christians, we recognize that Jesus was not only a man born of a virgin and lived into his 30s, he was and is the one true God. We read in the Bible of Jesus being confronted by Satan and rebuking him. Lord, we need your help every day when the devil tempts us to sin. You want us not to confront him, but to flee from him. You tell us in 1 Peter that we should be sober and vigilant when it comes to the devil. He's walking about like a roaring lion trying to devour whomever he can. We also ask for the boldness that Michael Cassidy had when he was face to face with a representation of Satan worship. Lastly, today, we ask for protection for Mr. Cassidy as he faces these hate charges. Allow him to be a witness for you in the courts and in the news reports as this incident is covered. We pray this in the name of the Holy One and our Savior, Jesus. Amen.
Moody Radio is thankful for listeners and support from businesses like Duma Meats and Farm Market. Duma Meats and Farm Market supporting Moody Radio in Cleveland and surrounding areas. More information about Duma Meats and Farm Market is at dumameats.com.
Who likes opposition? Nobody. I'm Pastor Mark Jobe, president of the Moody Bible Institute. The thing is, times of great opposition are often followed by times of great opportunity. At Moody Radio, we're seeing our culture step up its opposition to the gospel. Yet we believe that this also creates great opportunities to share Christ. Your fiscal year-end gift will help.
Learn more at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
Keeping your eyes on Jesus in a changing culture can be difficult. Let us help. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio, Cleveland.
636 WCRF. The idea of family in Scripture is pretty interesting, right? Because there's both the honor your father and mother commandment, and there's also, in the New Testament, we hear the idea that if you don't care for your own family, you're worse than an unbeliever. So there's this connectivity to your family that is important. And yet also the concept of adoption is there. We get new family when we start following Christ because we're adopted into a new family. It's not neither Greek, nor Jew, nor slave, nor free, nor male, nor female. We're all one in Christ Jesus. But there is this idea that provided they don't disown us, that we ought to be connected to our family and care for our family. You just experienced that in Chicago, Lauren.
Yeah.
So the New York Times had this article I had to talk about. It's called "The Constant Work to Keep a Family Connected Has a Name." And the name for the work of keeping family connected is kinkeeping.
Oh.
Have you heard this?
No, but it makes sense.
You've heard this.
Mm-hmm. I haven't heard it. I heard it from this article.
Yeah, I think I've heard it once before.
Now, references to kinkeepers began cropping up in sociology in the mid-20th century. Researchers defined the role as a family communicator who helped the extended group stay in touch by sharing family news and planning gatherings. In recent decades, sociology and psychology researchers have expanded the definition to include things like creating and carrying on family traditions, buying gifts for birthdays and holidays, coordinating medical care, and performing all sorts of emotional caregiving. It's that person that's the glue in the family, whether it's your immediate family or your extended family, who's doing all the work of keeping it going behind the scenes. And here's the really interesting twist to it, that shouldn't surprise anyone. One thing that's remained consistent through the years is that most kinkeepers are women.
Mm-hmm. Moms.
When researchers sought out kinkeepers for a 2017 study, more than 91% of the volunteers were women. The vast majority of kinkeepers are women. Then there was a TikTok trend, by the way, in 2022. It got millions of views. In this video, the person drew an analogy comparing family life to a play. Men are the actors and women are the production crew. Also, the ushers and everyone else working off stage. That's what the women are doing. They said there's lots of effort and time and energy that goes into a play, she says in the video. But at the end of the day, when the play is done, people are not clapping for everything that they did not see. And this struck a big chord.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what do you, ladies? Does this resonate with your life?
Yes.
In what way does it resonate for you, Daria?
So in my little nuclear family of just me and Jimmy, I'm definitely the kinkeeper. Like, I buy all the birthday cards and all that. I actually recently said I'm not buying birthday cards for your family because I don't remember when their birthdays are. That's your job. But like, I buy the holiday cards, Father's Day cards, and stuff like that. And Jimmy's side of the family did not get their holiday cards sent out till yesterday because he didn't know their addresses.
I'm laughing because I can relate to that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not laughing at Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
And then for like my extended family, I think that role's also kind of fallen to me. Like, my grandma had a birthday a couple months ago, and so I'm texting my mom and texting my grandma like, "Hey, grandma's birthday is like 2 days from now. Are we doing anything?" They're like, "Oh, I don't know." I'm like, "Is everyone free on Saturday?" And they said yes. I said 6:00 this restaurant.
And I'm glad you brought that up because I think there's two kinkeepers, and some people are both. There is the immediate family kinkeeper, and then there is the extended family kinkeeper. And so you're carrying a lot of weight over there.
Evidently.
Now, Ron, you're the kinkeeper, right?
No.
I'm only teasing. I knew you weren't. This connects pretty deeply. As in, like
I understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely something that I don't even think about. It's like, okay, well, that's something you do. Meanwhile, I've got a TV show to watch.
So, do you buy your sister a birthday card?
No.
Who does that?
Dana, I guess. I'll send her an email or a text or something. Yeah.
Meanwhile, if my brother Jacob is listening, I love you, buddy. He's never gotten a birthday card from me. I haven't got one from him, and we kind of both go, "Yep." Now,
sometimes a text is fine or a call.
Oh, I text him.
Yeah.
I'm like, "What's going on, geezer? You're even older now," or something like that. Now, the more dramatic lines, I don't think you ladies know how different your experiences are because you drew a small line with Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
Lauren has drawn a dramatic line. What is your line with kinkeeping?
I don't care for things for his side of the family.
Like at all?
No, I text my in-laws on their birthdays and on Mother's Day and Father's Day, all that kind of stuff. As myself. I don't text or call or whatever for our family.
What about their birthday cards and organizing get-togethers with them?
Eddie does that. It's his family.
Well, what happens if he doesn't or he forgets?
It's his family. It's his choice if he wants to have that connection there or not.
So if Ron was
I'm
married
not
to
going
you,
to be responsible for his relationship with his family
why not?
because it's his relationship with his family.
No.
I care for my side of the family and all my stuff over here.
Right. So you're essentially saying I will not be the kin keeper in this family.
For his side of the family.
Well, okay. So do you play the role of kin keeper in another way?
I do it with my family members. Like if there's something going on with my family, an event with my side of the family, I am the one connected for our nuclear family.
But what about the buying gifts within the family for like the kids, for example, or coordinating medical care?
So for my nuclear family.
Yeah.
Gifts we decide together. We like, oh, what should we get Trey for his birthday? His birthday's in like a week or whatever. We decide together what we should get him based upon what he likes right now. He needs some new clothes because he's growing. So I said, hey, is it okay if I go get some clothes? Do you think that's what we should do right now? Should we wait? Whatever. And he said, yes. We make those decisions together. Appointments, stuff like that, that's all in me. That mostly started because Trey had a really complicated start to life and I was on maternity leave. And so I have all of this medical history in my brain.
So it's not a result of being the kin keeper by default. It's that you all have chosen that's what you're going to do. You're going to lead that part of it.
Yeah.
So if you had a figurative T-shirt on now, it would say "not the kin keeper."
Yes.
That's a lot of people listening might say, "Wow, that's pretty interesting." Because isn't it the wife's job to run the household, to be the kin keeper, to do those things?
For your family, that's great. That's not how our family runs.
But it shouldn't it though? This is not
sure,
Brian saying
if that's how you want to run your family, that's great. That's not how I run my family.
So you're not saying you're doing it right, they're doing it wrong.
No.
You're just saying, like, if you want to be a kin keeper, God bless you.
Yeah.
Like Daria's doing it for her extended family.
Because no one would get together otherwise.
Yeah, and that's the oddity of it, right? Where I was showing this picture to our colleagues here, but I brought a picture of my grandma Betty, and
so cute.
If you look in the live stream, she was just like the quintessential 1950s woman.
Little sunglasses.
And she's got her red pumps on and her matching apron, and she's going outside with her apron on. I don't know why.
Like a suitcase and a box.
Yeah, I mean, no one's working harder than my grandma Betty. Now, I never met her. She was one of the featured points of my podcast series, The Grandfather Effect. But what I discovered from my dad's cousin, because there used to be these huge get-togethers. Every Christmas, you could hardly fit people in the house. The Dollins got together, and they celebrated Christmas. Somebody got to be Santa. The siblings were all getting together. Everything happened. But Betty was the kin keeper. And Betty died in 1975. And the whole family fell apart after she died. They never talked again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened in our family. It's not like that dramatic. Like we still see each other on occasion, but the one thing that held us together was my grandma. We would all get together to see her, gatherings at her house. And when she died 11 years ago, those gatherings just became a lot fewer and further between.
And that's a heartbreaker.
It really is.
And it really is one of the heartbreaking things in my series. It's like everyone seems to acknowledge that when Betty died, everything changed. But nobody picked up the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody. And so to what extent can we stare at men and go, what's wrong with you? Why don't you want to connect to your family? Because this is the kind of the ugly side of this, is that if most of the kin keepers are women, men seem to be relatively indifferent about their relatives, not their families, their relatives.
Yeah.
Is that a problem?
I think it's a historical trend that, goes back to women stayed home and took care of everything house related. The men went out, worked the fields, whatever, went into a factory and came out 12 hours later, came home. And it was just, that's how things went. That was part of the women's half of the family.
Mm-hmm.
But times have obviously changed. I think men, by all rights, should step it up and be involved. Know when your various birthdays and such, like, today I happen to know that it is my 32nd anniversary, and I've already posted to my wife.
Oh, Ron.
You should lead with that. Aw.
Well, it just crossed my mind. Like, there are things I do remember. But yeah, my sister, other relatives. I remember my brother's birthday and my sister's birthday, but I don't send them cards or anything, and I probably should. I should see it coming up and say, hey, this is something I should handle.
I can say that in my marriage relationship, Sarah was a stay-at-home mom for like 11 years. And so we developed a pretty traditional division of labor, where she was the kinkeeper just because it made sense at that point.
Mm-hmm.
We never had a conversation about it. I didn't say, well, you're the woman, so get the cards, and I will sign them, maybe. You might sign them for me. We didn't do that. The biggest struggle of her beginning to work full-time again was me waking up to the idea that she can't be the kinkeeper alone anymore. That has to do with medical appointments, prescription refills, scheduling the kids, paying attention to the schedule, keeping up with the schedule, making the meals, doing all the things behind the scenes that make the family tick. That's where our source of problem was that I didn't snap out of it. And I'm glad I did eventually, but it wasn't without a lot of havoc wreaked in my marriage relationship. So I don't know why I'm so slow with it. Maybe it is the tradition of how American life has gone for so long.
Yeah.
That it truly is, I think it's an injustice if both spouses are working in a family for the woman to be expected to do all the kinkeeping. It's not right.
You're correct there. No cap.
It might also just be kind of an out of sight, out of mind type of thing. We're very spread out physically, and I think women are just more constantly aware of things going on, like in the peripheral. So they're thinking about the family more. I don't think it's that the men don't care; it's just not front and center. So they're not thinking about it.
Well, and I wasn't thinking about it because I didn't have to for so long.
That's true too.
It's like if you're, I don't know. I think I don't want to be too hard on men because I have pet peeves about that if you listen to the show, but think about it. It's not your wife's job to care about your own mother. It's ridiculous. Right? Or I'm working on it. I'm not there yet, but I'm working on it. Okay, Lauren?
I didn't say anything.
I feel like there was judgment in your eyes.
No, what I said was do what's right for your family.
And that was a good thing to say.
Yeah.
All right, we may cover this again tomorrow, but for now, we're going to hit pause on that. And coming up in just a moment, one of my favorites, Pretend Experts, is just around the corner.
A lot of times you have to choose between something high quality or something that saves you money. But if you could get both, why not? Especially when it comes to healthcare, and that is MediShare. You get both. Many families save $500 a month with MediShare, and that's huge. But it's also true that people wind up way more satisfied, too. The member satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. That's because MediShare works. It has for more than 30 years. It's a community of Christians who have shared more than $5 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth. They love the huge PPO network. So, yeah, really, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price in 2 minutes. Here's the number. Just call 877-58-BIBLE. That's 877-58-BIBLE. 877-58-BIBLE.
There are a lot of places where you can learn how to fly an airplane. But how do you discover what it takes to serve as a missionary pilot? Moody Aviation has what you need. Here's what one of our students had to say about the program.
Well, any school can have great equipment and great facilities, but it's great instructors that make great pilots. And I found great instructors at Moody Aviation who are willing to share their lives, experiences, and knowledge with me. Yeah, I learned how to fly and how to fly well, but I also learned that being a missionary pilot takes more than good flying skills. It takes integrity and excellence and servanthood.
More than 50% of today's missionaries serving in aviation are graduates of Moody Bible Institute's aviation program. See how Moody Aviation can help you become the pilot and servant that God intended. Call 1-800-DL-MOODY or go to moodyaviation.org. That's moodyaviation.org.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Decisions and impose their positions without a doubt. They know what they're talking about. It's time for Pretend Experts.
All right, people. First story. I don't know where it comes to us from, but there is a new thing for chemistry nerds. You guys good at chemistry in high school?
Oh, so bad.
Yeah, I got bad grades, but I liked it. I enjoyed my teacher.
I have a very vivid memory of sitting in the back of one of our labs and crying because I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, I remember having to work so hard to figure out moles. Remember moles?
Oh, boy.
Oh, yeah.
The weird math problem with converting chemicals.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it is anymore.
Yeah.
Finally figured it out.
Periodic table.
Oh, yeah.
That one was, I thought, easy because it was like right there in front of you, but everything else,
I had to.
couldn't.
Did you guys have to memorize the periodic table?
Sure.
We didn't.
No.
Oh, I had to memorize it and their little 2-letter.
Yeah, like why is lead PB? Who
Yeah,
came up with
right,
that?
yeah.
Why is that it? Is that what it is? PB?
Who
I
knows?
think so,
I don't
yeah.
know.
Yeah. Chlorophyll sounds more like borophyll, as Billy Madison once said. Chemists have come up with a special paint that cleans itself.
Oh.
Can you say that again?
Let that
What?
sink in. Yeah. Chemists have come up with a special paint that cleans itself.
I don't want that in my house. Whatever's in that, I don't want that.
For the nerds, when UV light hits the surface of said paint, titanium oxide nanoparticles, it's my favorite type of nanoparticle,
Wow.
will jumpstart a reaction that breaks down junk and pollutants. This could be a game changer for buildings painted in light colors.
I don't think we want that, whatever reaction this is in our house.
Whatever nano bits are that, I don't want it. That
Yeah.
scares me.
I need a chemist to prove to me that this is a non-toxic
yeah.
It's like a
reaction.
non-carcinogen, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Also, technically, it's not self-cleaning because it needs light, so they lied.
And
Right.
also, we already had like the whole lead paint situation. Let's not try again with something
Right.
else.
No.
And asbestos.
Yeah, exactly.
Back in the day, it's like, can I have some extra asbestos and
Yeah,
lead paint,
come on
please?
in.
Stir it up.
Well, you wouldn't have it in your house because it does need the sunlight, so it's an outdoor paint.
So it's like the exterior of your home. You would, because now, like in Northeast Ohio, this is a unique thing where you suddenly on certain sides of the home, you get all this like, is it
Sure.
moss or I don't know what it is.
Algae.
But that's why people
Mold.
So that's why people get power wash their
Yeah,
houses. By the way, no one did that in Minnesota. Didn't know anyone who did it.
To power wash their house?
Yeah.
Oh.
Something about the climate here that has it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, like
weird,
they
huh?
didn't need it.
Huh,
Nobody needed it.
interesting.
Oh,
Never heard of it. So we don't like this.
No.
No.
I
Regular
kind-
paint is fine.
I kind of like it. I want it on my house. I don't want to have to power wash my house. You kidding me? Give me some extra titanium oxide. In fact, I'll give it a good lick.
Yeah.
No.
I don't know what to do on this one because we have a. Here's what I'll do. Both, because we have a tie. Okay, next story. TJX, the parent company of TJ Maxx, Home Goods, and Marshalls,
Okay.
are
Love
putting
all three
on
of those stores.
they're putting on body cameras on employees. After a year of testing, they're hoping the cameras stop shoplifting. They say only law enforcement or legal reps will, with a subpoena, can view the footage. But the employees are going to be wearing body cams at TJ Maxx and Marshalls.
I have never
No.
seen an employee in one of these stores that's not at the cash register, so I don't think this will do anything.
Yeah, I don't really see people wandering around those stores.
Yeah, I mean, most places now are so low staffed. It's like you have to really work hard to find help. And they're really annoyed that you asked because they're busy doing, like, stocking the shelves and cleaning the floor and everything. But you know there's someone listening going, no, I don't want them looking at me and recording pictures of me.
Well,
I'm not going to Marshall's ever again. You have no right to do that. It's America.
Isn't that what like the dome video cameras are for?
Yeah, they already have those. And if I'm an employee, I don't want to wear a body camera.
I don't want to wear that.
Because all day it's going to be picking up my conversations with my other employees.
Yeah, I would like to sing to myself in peace while I restock the shelves.
But I just thought of a possible way that could be helpful is there's a rise in shoppers being abusive to retail
True,
clerks.
that's true.
And so it might cause people to stop and think before they completely become a jerk to you that hey, I'm recording this, so you start berating me and calling me names because I don't make as much money as you or your husband. Well, I'm recording this. So, et tu, Brute?
Get nervous, Karen. Karen's in trouble. I don't.
No.
I've always wondered about the person who's so wound up about, cameras catching what they're doing. It's like, what are you doing?
Right.
Like I'm doing my best to not break the law.
Yeah, I'm trying.
And so I'm not worried about being caught shoplifting because I don't
I'm
shoplift.
not going to shoplift.
Mm-hmm.
And if
Great
I
point.
accidentally did, I would be like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry.
So
Let me give this
sorry.
back to you.
Yeah.
Or I'll pay for it. Or call the police on me or something. It's like, don't take video of me. Why not? I don't know. I mean, but you're right.
If I
they
did
already
something
are.
wrong. Yeah, what's the dome cameras? I don't understand why those are not a thing.
Just seems like overkill.
Maybe they don't really work. They're just there as a placebo.
Dun, dun, dun.
Or you're kind of counting on your employees being in the exact right place at the exact right time, whereas the cameras
So true.
overhead are always in the right place.
So I guess we're nixing this. We don't like it.
I don't mind it.
I just don't think it's necessary.
Lauren?
It's fine. I don't know why it's necessary.
Well, what am I supposed to do with that? Here, I'll do it again. Okay, final story. It was just in time for Father's Day. We're late getting to it, but nonetheless, Pepsi partnered with celebrity chef Bobby Flay for a new cologne.
A what now?
A new cologne.
Chef and Pepsi are making a cologne.
Pepsi and Bobby Flay.
That's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
I know, seriously.
It's a new cologne called Smoked.
Oh.
Oh, it's going to smell like a grill?
It's like eau de toilette, smoked. PepsiCo says they've introduced this new Cola-own. Get it?
No.
Yeah.
That's so embarrassing.
That captures the summer sense of grilling and ice cold Pepsi.
Pepsi is not a good smell. It's not like that's not a good smell.
It is.
Who wants to walk around smelling like smoke? Like
Yeah.
if I go to like a bonfire or something, I have to immediately wash my hair because
Yes,
I can't
that's
stand
exactly
the
right.
smell of the smoke in it.
Yes, that's exactly right.
But now, technically, it features notes of caramel, citrus, and wood.
Caramel? No.
You don't
Caramel,
want to
citrus,
smell
and
that on
wood?
Eddie?
No.
Those don't go together.
Is there a grill going? And Pepsi? Nope, just Eddie.
No, I don't want to smell that.
Dari doesn't like it either. Ron, you going to put on some de Pepsi grill?
No, not my
De
favorite.
Pepsi.
It's a bad idea. It's a bad idea. All right, that does it for Pretend Experts. Coming up in just a minute, our friend Dr. Mark Caleb Smith. He is from Cedarville University, where he's taught political science for many, many years. We have certainly an election year upon us, and the session of this current session of the Supreme Court is just about out. Whole bunch of decisions have come out. Much to talk about the court and how Christians ought to view it. More on that right after Ron's news and today's More Ron Moment.
Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland, WCRF Cleveland, WVMS Sandusky, WVML Millersburg, WVMN Newcastle, WVME Meadville, WVMU Ashtabula, and everywhere with the Moody Radio app or at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
The White House reportedly canceled a high-level meeting with Israeli officials on Iran that was scheduled for today. It's 7:01. I'm Ron Eastwood, Moody Radio News. Axios reports the move was in response to a video posted by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, in which he claimed the U.S. was withholding military aid. President Biden's top advisors were reportedly enraged by the video, and some Israeli officials were already en route to Washington, D.C. when the meeting was called off. Some Lake Erie beaches are under bacteria contamination advisory due to heightened E. coli risk. The Ohio Department of Health issued the warning this week, noting the potential risk to children, elderly residents, and those with weakened immune systems. The affected beaches are Villa Angela State Park in Euclid, Euclid Beach Park, Lakeview Beach in Lorain County, and Darby Creek Beach in Erie County. And animal welfare officials across the Buckeye State are encouraging pet owners to be safe in this heat. As temperatures will remain in the 90s for the foreseeable future, they recommend limiting outdoor exposure for animals. And if you must take your dogs out, they recommend booties to keep their feet from being burned on the hot sidewalks. Sports and weather in just a moment.
Whether you are single, a single parent, blended, married, a teenager, or school-aged, Family Strong Conference will equip and empower you to build a stronger family in a culture where too many homes are weak and falling apart. Hear Dr. Eric Mason, author of Urban Apologetics and Manhood Restored, Dr. Julie Slattery, author of Finding the Hero in Your Husband and Rethinking Sexuality, and famous YouTuber Alan Parr, our keynote speakers on Saturday, June 29th. Register today at newcommunitybible.org.
In sports, the Guardians shut out the Mariners 8-0, while the Pirates blanked the Reds 1-0. Here's your Moody Radio Cleveland forecast. The heat advisory that we've been under has been extended now until 8 p.m. Saturday. For today, partly cloudy, scattered showers and thunderstorms this afternoon, and hot conditions again with highs in the lower 90s. Currently, we've got clear skies now in Cleveland, 74 degrees. The same in Akron and Canton, clear skies and 74 degrees. Worcester actually is reporting fog and 70 degrees.
It's time for your moron moment.
Today marks the summer solstice, the longest day of the year in the Northern Hemisphere and the shortest in the Southern Hemisphere. It will actually occur at 4:50 p.m. Eastern Time. The solstice signals the beginning of astronomical summer north of the equator and winter in the Southern Hemisphere. The sun will not set at the North Pole, and at the South Pole it will not rise. If you're curious, all this happens as a result of the Earth rotating on an axis that's tilted 23.5 degrees. And that's your Moron Moment. And you'll find that on our Facebook and Instagram. It's 7:04. With Moody Radio News, I'm Ron Eastwood.
Broadcasting live from the Bob Devine Studio. It's Mornings with Brian. Want to join the conversation? Call or text now at 440-546-2255. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
This is WCRF. You're listening to Mornings with Brian, and joining us now is the Dean of the School of Arts and Humanities, also Professor of Political Science and Director of the Center for Political Studies at Cedarville University. Welcome back, Dr. Mark Caleb Smith.
That's a pretty long business card.
Yeah, I don't know how you do all that.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
I'm doing just fine, thanks. How you doing?
I'm doing great. We're going to get into some political things today, and for both of our sakes and for those listening to us, we both are passionately nonpartisan, personally and professionally. But that's a hard thing for folks to grasp these days. I mean, my experience, maybe when I started in radio like 15 years ago, you could really talk a lot of politics and just push the envelope on the air, and people would be okay with it.
Yeah.
My experience now, I can hardly bring it up without rage coming towards me. So has that been your experience, or is this just a radio problem?
No, I wouldn't say I get a lot of rage necessarily, but I do get a lot of interaction with people that I think they misunderstand what my role is. I think they think of, they look at me and say, well, you're a conservative Christian guy. Why aren't you rooting for this team or that team? But I'm not really here to root for people. I'm here as an analyst. I'm here to understand things and hopefully use my expertise to explain things to people. And so it comes out differently than people expect. And so they expect to hear sort of a narrative and a defense of something. I'm usually here to try to explain something instead. And so it puts me in a different position, and often people don't always quite understand that, and that's fine. And I'm happy to talk with people about it. But I think a lot of it, and I'm sure you experience the same thing, people just expect their prior beliefs to be affirmed. And when they don't hear exactly what they're expecting, sometimes it can be frustrating.
So why do you think analysis, political analysis, looking at various aspects, whether or not you agree or like it, why does that matter for Christians?
Well, I think when Christ sent out his disciples in the world, he told them to be as wise as serpents and innocent as doves. And I think the wise as serpents part requires us to be understanding of reality, to sort of look at everything, get a feel for what things are actually like in the world, get a sense of what we can and can't do and what's reasonable and what's not reasonable. And then do our best applying our principles in that environment. And so, I think the analysis is a pretty important part of even deciding what to do as a believer, much less as a citizen and everything else. And so to me, it's a critical part of how I approach the world.
Well, then for me, as a guy who used to teach social studies, I feel like I have to look at my faith and make sure that when I follow Christ, it transcends 2024 American politics. As in, I should be able to have a faith that I could transport through time and plot myself in some sort of dictatorship in the Middle Ages and not have to change much of anything. Is this right thinking, or am I nutty?
No, I think you're right, honestly. Now, I think when you look at Scripture and sort of pull the political principles that are there in Scripture, the fundamental things that we're obligated to do as Christians, we can do in any political environment. It doesn't matter where we find ourselves. We can still show honor and respect. We can still show obedience and submission. We can still pray for our leaders. We can still pay taxes. We can do all the things that Scripture commands us to do. We can love our enemies. We can do all these things that Scripture commands us to do, no matter where we find ourselves. And in some places where we might find ourselves, that would be easier and a light burden to carry, and other places where we might find ourselves, it could be very, very difficult to live that life. But, I think of Paul's admonition that we have freedom in Christ, and I take that freedom to be spiritual freedom, and a lot of people take it to be a political freedom. But what you're describing, that I could find myself in any regime, you could, and you could still display that freedom in Christ that you have regardless of your political circumstances.
Excellent. And that's kind of our preamble today, because we are going to touch on some things that are, political in nature. And I brought up time travel, so it feels like we're going back to, 2016 or something? Here we are. Time warp. So explain the landscape of the American voter right now when it comes to the two presumptive nominees. Is there anyone ahead, behind? What's going on?
Yeah, you said 2016. That's probably a good place to start. When we look at the election right now, I think it feels a lot more like 2016 than 2020 because a lot of people just don't like the two major party candidates. And We saw a similar phenomenon in 2016. A big chunk of voters had a lot of negative attitudes toward Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. You see the same thing here with Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And as normal, we have the election probably coming down to a few swing states, and a handful of voters in those swing states are probably going to make a significant difference on who becomes president of the United States. And so in some ways, the election is kind of typical for what we've seen the last several cycles, very closely contested. Swing states are going to matter a tremendous amount, and somewhat unpopular candidates. At the same time, these are two unique situations with Biden and Trump. They present different circumstances and obviously incredibly different visions for the future of the country.
So is there any way to predict what the undecided Americans who don't like either candidate that's available, like how do we know what they're going to do?
Oh, man, if I could fully answer that question, I'd probably be running a campaign somewhere and get right down to it.
Right.
And I don't think they know. They don't know. They're dumping money into these states hoping to reach those voters. There's no good way to predict what they're going to do. They really have three choices. They can stay at home. They can vote for a third-party candidate, or they can kind of bite the bullet and choose one of the two candidates they don't like very much. And, I think if I'm candid about it, and all of my political science-y background and analysis and thinking, a huge chunk of them are just going to stay at home.
You think so, huh?
Yeah, I do, because often disaffected voters who feel disconnected from the system, they don't feel a lot of buy-in, they don't vote consistently necessarily. Unless they're really motivated to go vote, their default is going to be, it's just not worth it. And that doesn't mean it's not worth it in terms of the work involved. It just means they just don't feel like their vote's going to have enough of an impact, as they just don't feel the psychological need to show up. And so I think many of them are going to stay home, but not all of them. And it's that chunk that is going to actually walk to the polls that might make the big difference.
And now I can picture someone yelling at their radio, "What about Kennedy? What about Kennedy?" My wife and I were in Nashville over the weekend, and I actually saw somebody had a big RV that I think they made themselves into a Kennedy RV that they were driving up and down, because I saw their kid in the passenger seat. It wasn't like it was a political thing. So what about Kennedy?
Yeah, I mean, Kennedy is percolating around in the polls still. For those of your listeners that are a lot older, I guess we're dating ourselves. He's not quite where Ross Perot was way back in the day. In 1992, Ross Perot, as a third-party candidate, was really running pretty even with the other two-party candidates into the early summer of that campaign season. Kennedy's nowhere near that. He's usually polling in the single digits or the teens, but those numbers are large enough to affect the outcome when it comes to just a few states. When we look at the 2020 election, I think the number is around 40,000 votes. If 43,000 votes had been shifted in Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin, the election would have turned out differently. And if Kennedy affects 50, 100,000, 200,000 key voters in key states, he could have a massive impact. Now, I think it's a very, very small possibility he could do something like actually win some electoral college votes. But I think there's a real chance he could play a spoiler in some of those states. What makes Kennedy interesting as a third-party candidate, I think, is it's hard to know how his votes are going to cut because he's such an interesting – he has so many different pitches to people that it isn't going to necessarily pull from Trump only or Biden only. It's going to really, I think, be a cross-cutting sort of thing. And so it makes it difficult to predict what might happen.
Yeah, because usually, correct me if I'm wrong, a third-party candidate is primarily bad for one candidate, not both.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, usually they come from an ideological perspective, and they tend to be either pretty solidly left-wing or right-wing, and therefore they're going to be pulling voters primarily from one side of the aisle or the other. Kennedy is someone, because of his appeal, because of his unconventional, anti-establishment views on things, is appealing to both sides of the aisle to some extent. And it's a testament to where our politics are. There are so many people who just really, and I don't even say this pejoratively, that just really want to burn the system down. They just think the system isn't working, that needs fundamental reform, and they think Kennedy is the kind of guy that could maybe do that. And I think that's really the secret to a lot of Trump's appeal as well. he tends to use this language that suggests he's willing to make massive changes to the system, and there's clearly a hunger for that.
Well, at 7:18, our guest is Dr. Mark Caleb Smith from Cedarville University, where he basically does everything, it sounds like, but primarily Dean of the School of Arts and Humanities. He's also a political science professor. When we come back, we're going to shift gears a bit to the Supreme Court. There's been a bunch of decisions that have come out, and I think the Supreme Court is always a major part of presidential elections. We got to talk about it, and we will in just a moment.
We can endure unexpected calamities. How? By taking our stand on the strong foundation of God's Word. Thoughts from Never Lose Hope by Chuck Swindoll. We'll send you a copy to say thanks for your fiscal year-end gift to Moody Radio. Swindoll reminds we don't have to settle for merely surviving. We can set our sights on thriving. Thanks for helping us finish the fiscal year strong.
Give online at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
Looking for answers to life's questions from a trusted voice? Want to take the next step in your faith journey but don't know where to begin? You're not alone. Join the community over at the new Bold Steps app for engaging content that addresses everyday life questions with candid, topical teaching from the Bible. Perfect for iOS and Android users, the Bold Steps app is available at your favorite app store. Download it for free today.
Get up, get ready, and get going. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
7:19 with us, Dr. Mark Caleb Smith. We're talking politics, and remember, this station and our friend Dr. Mark Caleb Smith from Cedarville University, we are passionately nonpartisan and very pro-Jesus. So that's all you need to know about us as we continue chatting here today. Now, the Supreme Court, I think, is, if I remember correctly, they have like a season, right? And it's almost over, right, the whole session, and it's over in June, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, their term generally runs from October through June, and then they go on vacation for a few months, then come back. So generally, they're going to hand down their most contentious decisions toward the end of June.
And I've been listening a lot to a particular legal podcast and trying to get my head around the Supreme Court a little bit more. And I've been surprised by a number of things, because I think most people look at the court's ideological makeup based on which presidents nominated each justice. And they presume it's like a 6-3 court, like almost a supermajority conservative court. But it doesn't seem like that's how things are playing out, does it?
No, it's not. I mean, I think it would be fair to say the court's certainly more conservative than it has been probably any time in our lifetimes. I think that's probably accurate. I think when it comes to a lot of hot-button issues, the court does tend to break in some ways toward a little bit more of a conservative lean. But no, we're not really looking at kind of a monolithic court where it's just 6-3 on all the decisions, and the progressive justices who are appointed by Democrats are kind of in the minority, and the conservative Republican kind of justices are just running roughshod over them. I think people get that perception because a lot of those high-profile cases, you do see that breakdown. You know, like in the Dobbs decision, that's kind of what we saw, was 5 Republicans saying, let's go ahead and overturn Roe. The Chief Justice going, well, I'm not willing to go that far. And then the 3 more progressives saying, we want to uphold. But that's not really the way the court functions for the most part. You know, when you look at the numbers, it's remarkable. I think most people wouldn't believe it probably, but it's remarkable how often the court is just unanimous. Last term, so not this year, but the last term, more than 50% of the court's decisions were unanimous. So 9-0, all 9 of these justices appointed by different administrations with different backgrounds, different approaches to the Constitution, agreed fully together on the outcome of the case. You know, we think of the recent Mifepristone case.
Yes.
That was a 9-0 decision on standing. And standing is a really technical issue. It wasn't about abortion per se at all, but it was a 9-0 decision deciding, you know, the people who brought this lawsuit just don't have the proper legal grounds to bring the lawsuit, and therefore we're going to move on. 9-0 decision. I suspect, I could be wrong, I suspect the upcoming decision on presidential immunity where the question is whether or not Mr. Trump has this really broad sense of immunity as a former president. I suspect the court's going to go 9-0 in that also.
You do?
And I think, yeah, I do. And I think there's a deliberate effort on the court, and I think wisely, a deliberate effort right now to try to be as unanimous as they can be because of how much pressure they're being put under from different parts of the electorate that kind of fit this narrative. And I think they're pushing back on it as much as they can.
Yeah, and you know, as I listen to commentary from attorneys and court watchers on this, it sounds to me like they get really frustrated with the media and how they depict decisions, like with this abortion pill, mifepristone.
Right. Yep.
You know, there's political commentary and headlines when really the court, as I understand it, didn't have any opinion about the pill at all. Is that correct?
Not at all. That's right. No, it was framed as sort of an abortion decision because the underlying issue was whether or not the Food and Drug Administration had incorrectly expanded access to this particular drug, and a group of doctors had sued. And so that's the narrative that people are looking at. And, you know, obviously in our culture war moment and the critical, abortion is a critical moral issue. And so we're right to look at the court and see what's going to happen there. But the court didn't deal with that at all. The court just simply said this group doesn't have standing to bring the lawsuit. We're moving on. But then it gets framed as, well, the court has now done something in the abortion wars. That's just not true whatsoever.
At all.
At all. No, not at all. And it's the same thing you could argue with the bump stock case, the Second Amendment issue, where people were wondering, you know, how's this court going to deal with whether or not the president can unilaterally ban bump stocks through executive authority? The court said the president overstepped his bounds. Now, the court didn't say that no one could ban bump stocks. That's not at all what they said. What they said is the president doesn't have the power to do it by himself. If Congress wants to do this, let Congress do it. Probably going to be fine with the Second Amendment, probably no issue there, and we'll just simply move along. And so we want to make the court part of our kind of polarized culture war thinking that all of our politics kind of folds into, but the court just doesn't fit that. It's a much more complicated institution than that. And the law is much more complicated than just Republican, Democrat, and right and left.
And as I listen to analysis of what they actually write in their opinions, is it correct to say that the court seems to be irritated with Congress?
I think it's fair to say that one of the major themes that we're seeing in the court over the last several terms, I think, is simply a demand for Congress to actually legislate. Don't rely on executive actions. Don't wait for the president to simply pull out a pen and decide to forgive student loans or decide to build a wall or decide to do anything else. Congress needs to legislate, and then we'll deal with a lot of these other problems through legislation. And so, you know, I understand that especially progressives have a lot of distrust for the court at the moment after the Dobbs decision. But I think what the court's trying to do is to sort of reorder the institutional relationships between the executive and the legislature and the judicial branch. And if they could do that, if they push back enough and force Congress into legislating more and pull a little bit of power away from the executive, I think it would be a massive benefit to the country.
And now this is why I, in years past, have been cautious when I hear particularly Christians saying the most important thing about a presidential election is actually Supreme Court nominations. But when you look at the actions of the court, I don't know that we can predict that just because we vote for candidate A, that their Supreme Court selection will do what we want them to do. Does that make sense?
No, I think it's exactly right. When you look at the court right now, you know, we have 6 justices who are appointed by Republicans, 3 who are appointed by Democrats, and that's the typical 6-3 split that we always hear about. But in reality, those 6 Republicans are pretty different people, and they have really different perspectives. And there's at least 2 groups of them, not just one big chunk of them. And they have different attitudes, not only toward the Constitution, but toward the role of the Supreme Court itself in society. And then you look at some of those even more progressive justices, like Justice Kagan. She's not as predictable as people might think. People might be shocked to hear that Justice Kagan and Justice Alito, so Kagan, one of the most progressive members of the court, Alito, one of the most conservative members of the court, they agreed on more than 60% of their cases last term.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is surprising.
Yeah, and people just want to sort of have this sense, well, we know what's going to happen because of how they were appointed. That's just simply not the case. Justices also evolve. They change their minds over the years, and they develop different points of view. And so I don't think it's always so predictable at all. Certainly, you're more likely to get a certain kind of justice based on the president, but that doesn't necessarily lead to a clear line of outcomes when it comes to your favorite issue.
Yeah, because I think political rhetoric would have said years ago, oh, if we could just get enough justices, they'll strike down this abortion pill. And yet here we are, and all 9 agreed in a way that probably the politics wouldn't suggest they would.
And I think, so like what you said, if we could just get enough justices, then this is going to be the outcome that we're hoping for. And what we've seen, I think the reality that's starting to settle in, especially in the pro-life world, they have enough justices, and they turned the issue back to the states. But that didn't resolve the issue at all.
Right.
If anything, it turned the issue into a much more complicated political issue that now is cutting in many different directions. And, they made their decision, and it's the decision that the pro-life community wanted, and it's the decision that I wanted, to be very clear about that. I think it was a good decision, but it certainly didn't resolve the issue of abortion, and it led to a lot more questions, I think, than answers. And so, I think that we have a tendency to put our hopes and expectations in what the court might do. That's probably not the best place to put your hopes.
So then the natural conclusion to our discussion has to be, so what do Christians do then? How do Christians analyze and prepare for an election in November?
Yeah, I think you have to start with one fundamental political reality that's actually theological in nature, and it's that God is sovereign and I am not. In the sense that God makes these, this is all part of God's unfolding plan. God institutes authorities as he sees fit. He raises, he lowers authorities as he sees fit. I have a role to play as a voter and as a citizen and as a believer, but at the end of the day, my role is severely limited compared to the role of the sovereign God. And I think when I start with that belief, everything else tends to fall in a different place. Whereas if I go into the election season feeling a burden that, that my vote's going to dictate an outcome, or that this election might dictate the future of the country, or that if this happens, then America is doomed or America is going to succeed, that puts an awful lot of pressure on me as a person, not only as a citizen, but as a believer. And I think that's just accepting way too much pressure on ourselves. I think we have an obligation to vote and to be active and to be engaged. But I think we have to understand that at the end of the day, we're not the one driving the bus here. Someone else is doing that.
Well said. Again, this has been a great conversation with our friend Dr. Mark Caleb Smith. He's Dean of the School of Arts and Humanities at Cedarville University, where he also serves as Professor of Political Science and Director of the Center for Political Studies. I think he might be the executive chef as well. I'm not sure. I'm checking on that. Again, Cedarville University. Go to cedarville.edu. That's cedarville.edu.